circling back to that first topic of the governments of the world seeming to be heck bent on getting us into the digital era, including all digitalization of all assets, including precious metals, and how will that impact privacy of assets that people already own?
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, the world is moving in that direction, whether it be the Genius Act, which is in essence the tokenization of the US dollar, backed by short-term treasuries, whether it be stablecoins, whether it be securities. And you're seeing that where you're getting SEC registration for tokenization of securities. It's in essence the blockchain moving into the legacy system for instant settlement and clearing and more efficient, transparent rails is what we will be told. Having physical metal right now as it exists is outside that grid. The issue then becomes, what do you do with it? When you go to sell the metal, at some point down the road, once we have entered the Genius Act territory of tokenization of assets, you have to get back into the system to get paid. Unless you're able to barter it, I guess. But short of that, the metal itself won't be registered, but coming back in with dollars, now the new system will be tokenized. And again, it's a step removed, one step removed from that type of draconian CBDC, Orwellian type of, vision. But it's not that far, because when you talk about, and this is one of the things that Catherine Austin Fitts rallies against, when you look at the tokenization, for example, of the dollar through Tether, as you and I have discussed at length, they have already embedded in the software KYC, know your client, KYT, know their transaction, and AML, anti-money laundering. But as we recently learned, and it's pretty obvious, through Tether blocking the wallets of the IRGC in stablecoin usage, and even Secretary Treasury Bessent talking about it, how, we emptied their wallets. They didn't even know it's not missing yet, probably something to that extent is concerning, because in essence, they were able to block it at the smart contract level, they being the authorities and Tether. And what it basically means is, even if they really yank it out of the wallet, the smart contract was frozen or blackballed across the industry, rendering them obsolete. So you enter a system of containment, a foray into the digital surveillance state, when mixed with the digital ID, digital money, the ability to program said digital money that already has KYC, AML, and KYT capabilities, and probably others we really don't know about. Yeah, it is one reason to hold metal outside the system. But getting back into it is just like anything. Well, the same thing goes for those people who all these years had cryptocurrency and thought that it would be a very private way to grow your wealth. So let's just do an exercise for a moment. You'd go into the system. I have a very smart, well, let's just say very successful client, and very well educated, rephrase it that way. And I would speak to her and she'd say, I go from A to B to C to B to A to D to B to A to C, switching from cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency. I'm like, do you report that? She said, no, but I never go back to dollars. Big mistake, because when you do go back to dollars, if you go back to dollars and get back into that system, and if questioned, how do you show how you went from A to B? What were the moves in between? Each and every one of those transactions are independent transactions. So my point is, one of the things that we are seeing in everything is transparency, is the ability to track, to monitor. When the IRGC's wallets were frozen, the commentary that went along with the article was that, we've seen these wallets be responsible for large movements, between players, and they could see all of the movements that came in and out of that wallet, who they were going to. The era of privacy is slowly coming to an end, or should I say rapidly coming to an end. And I guess in a world of diminishing privacy, having just a little bit outside the system behooves you. But don't be fooled for a moment thinking that any of us can escape this digital matrix. You really can't. So dot your I's, cross your T's, keep your stuff safe. And when it comes time to jumping back into the system with your profits, so be it. But you did everything the right way.
Just a follow-up on that, we did interview the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and they talked about the coalition of states. A lot of these are Western states, and you've been actually working with a number of them, including non-Western states like Florida and others, who are drafting new legislation to allow some exchange to be done directly in precious metals. In some cases for land contracts, if you're doing real estate and that kind of thing. Is this a potential alternative to needing to liquidate back into dollars in the system before being able to do a transaction if you hold precious metals as an asset?
I don't know that it does completely, because it's not like this. You see, one of the reasons that the states many of them are allowing these transactions to be made free of state sales tax is because they realize you still have federal capital gains taxes. And so it's not like they're not going to be reported to the federal government at that level. It's not like you can go, let me put it this way. Yes, in the legislation, it does say I can trade gold eagles with you or silver eagles with you if you'll accept it. I can't make you do it. And in theory, that's private. It's invisible. But in doing it the way that the states, I think, have it envisioned is by doing it on a digital application based upon the money, your gold or silver held within a vault. Now, I haven't dug deep enough into seeing how they're going to fractionalize it, where if you have 500 gold eagles in a Florida depository or Texas depository, and you go buy a pack of chewing gum with your debit card attached to that account, how does it reconcile? That I don't know. I have to figure that out. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's going to be very easy, short of an outright barter, for people to avoid tiptoeing back into that system. And I think this is something that is just the very beginning. I think it will get more and more so that way. Privacy and cash will become something that kind of like your grandfather telling you a story. It will be an example of what was. Now, it's not going to happen all at once, but you can really feel it. And once the Genius Act is made official in January, they're finishing the final touches on the Clarity Act right now. As far as I'm concerned, precious metals will be one of the only ways to have any semblance of wealth and liquidity outside the system. But accessing that wealth in dollars, there's no way but to come back into the system. And even if the states are promoting it, you still have the federal capital gains tax to worry about. Now, if President Trump were to remove that, then you would have an argument that then, yes, metal would be an alternative to that. It would be. But until then, the feds still want their pound of flesh, and hopefully it goes away, kind of like Missouri, who just retroactively changed back to no sales tax on precious metals. They had no sales tax, Maryland, I'm sorry. Then they went to sales tax. One of the only states that went back to it. Now they just retroactively went back to no sales tax. Well, maybe you'll see the federal government realize that American gold and silver coins made by the U.S. Mint are legal tender. They're not currency as it is right now, but they're legal tender for all debts, public and private, issued by the U.S. Treasury Department. There's no reason they should be taxed. And if they got rid of that, then I would argue yes.